Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, Chatting with ISO Experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and today I'm here with Reagan Jorgensen, Security Solutions Technician from here at Core. Glad you could join us again.
Very, very happy to be here.
So glad you're with us again. So this week's podcast is part 2 of What to Do After a Cyber Attack. Last week, we talked a bit about immediate steps to take. Now let's dive into some more details. So we mentioned it a little before, but how vital is having an incident response plan in place before an attack occurs? Obviously, it's really important, but what should it include as well?
Yeah, so having an IRP or incident response plan in place before an attack occurs is critical. And you probably all knew that I was going to say that. Yeah. It's absolutely critical because you can't wait till the last minute when something happens,
right,
and just scramble around and say, oh, let's disconnect this. Oh, now we have to log this. One, you will forget something. Two, you don't have you're not doing it the right way.
Right.
So it's definitely critical for an organization's ability to respond quickly and effectively. So an IRP should definitely be configured, tested, approved far before an attack occurs. So, as soon as business operations are rolling, IRP should be thought of.
Okay.
So an IRP should include clear procedures for identifying and reporting incidents, roles and responsibilities for key personnel. So you know how to identify and report on an incident or an attack when it happens. You know who is going to handle what.
Mm-hmm.
Your IT person is going to shut all the system down. Your data management person's going to revoke access, whatever it is.
Right.
You know who's doing what and when they need to do it. So you should definitely have clear procedures identifying, reporting incidents, roles and responsibilities are essential. And then communication strategies for both internally and externally are needed. You need to know, like I mentioned, who's talking to who. Hey, I shut this thing down.
Right.
No, you didn't. I'm looking at it right now. Or externally, you need to communicate to either the system or person that was attacked, or a MSP, third-party service, a cloud service provider, something like that.
Right.
You need to be able to identify that and communicate with them initially.
Well, and you might need to bring in other people. Like, let's say, you do have an IT person, but, you also have somebody who can do it on the side. And you're like, okay, well, we're going to try to have a rapid response. Maybe you need to reach out to some other people that know what they're doing and bring them into the fold. If you have duties divvied out and a checklist of, okay, this is how it happens, boom, 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 you follow it, you've already run through it, you've tested it. Can you give us some ideas that could be helpful for our listeners in regards to setting up an IRP?
Yeah, and I'll touch on them at a kind of high level. I won't go too in depth.
We could go into the weeds here. Just
yeah, it's very easy to.
Yeah,
but I'll break it down kind of short here. So the first thing, like we talked about, conducting a comprehensive risk assessment. So this involves identifying, prioritizing critical assets, potential threats, allows you to begin the first steps of that process. To identify specific risks and ensure high impact areas are prioritized. Yeah. So that's one, risk assessment, definitely first to know where you're at.
Right.
Then you want to define those clear objectives and responsibilities. Who needs an IRP? Why do we need it? What do we need? The resources, how much hardware, on-site or off-site backups, or, things like that.
Right.
Who, what, when, where, why? You ask all those questions.
Gotcha.
And then in this portion, you can kind of assemble that incident response team.
Okay.
You want to know who's handling what in this IRP process. And this is where you gather those involved in the IRP, defining their scope and what to do.
Gotcha.
Technical specialists, communications leads, things like that we talked about earlier. I'll add even legal advisors, that should be part of this process. So those are two of the main starting steps, is the assessment and then defining those objectives and responsibilities. When you want to begin the process of an IRP, incident response plan takes a little bit. It's a lot of resources. The number one thing in cost is the resources it takes you to build the IRP.
Okay.
Because there's so many things involved.
Yeah, so many people and devices, depending on the scope of your IT department, how many people you have, but now how many devices are they managing? Whether it's workstations, whether it's smaller devices, phones. tablets? Are people working remotely and in the office, or do they have two devices there? There's so many different things you can look at and say, oh, these all need to be handled. And I think like you were saying, have priority. Maybe somebody that's in, in our sales and marketing and our software that we provide is really important. The guy that does the podcast, like me, if we don't have a podcast for 1 week because we're dealing with an instant response, to a cyber attack, is the world going to end? Is the business going to stop? No, probably not. Not that we're not important and we don't enjoy you, giving information out to you all in this pod, but where are your priorities?
Absolutely.
Whose device is the most priorities? Those types of things.
Yep, 100%. You want to then define everything you mentioned, the amount of people. It takes a lot of resources. It really does. It's not an easy plan. But if you do the due care and then you have due diligence to enforce that, you'll be plenty fine. And if an attack occurs, you will realize if you have a well-assessed IRP, you're good to go and you're ready to handle any attack.
Yeah.
All right. So those are the two main ideas. This kind of gets you off the ground and moving towards a quality IRP. Once you lay the ground floor, which is what we did in those first two steps, the rest of the setup can come with things like threat playbooks, different types of incidents. That the threat playbook just shows you, it's kind of like a reference book, I guess you should say. It shows you what type of incidents could happen and how to be prepared for them.
Right. So if somebody's device just gets malware on it versus someone's physically attacking our network and trying to get into the back end,
Yeah, exactly.
Different plays, if you will. Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Or I should say different threats in that playbook. Almost an if this, then that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yep. 100%. Or then you can move on to monitoring, logging, and legal and compliance kind of go hand in hand, and you for sure want to do that. And then, of course, the continual improvement on the IRP. So you kind of lay the ground floor with the first two things I talked about, the assessment, defining everything. Then you want to have the different types of kind of threat playbook, monitor, log, legal, and compliance. Everything is handled kind of in that order. And then you want to improve on the IRP over time. Where you want to always want to improve on that IRP, especially if an attack occurs, but you want to monitor and change that IRP. Look at it every quarter, I would say.
Yeah, see if you have new people, different roles, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, so much involved. Yep,
great stuff. So before we have an attack, getting your employees to understand what some threats are is really important. So what role does employee training play in responding to a cyber attack, and what are areas that you can cover?
I've said in other podcasts that we've done, it's the most important thing that you can do. Yeah. And it doesn't stop at showing them cyber incidents or what could happen to you. It's showing them about the incident response plan. So what happens, like you said, if something happens, I know what to do. Employee training comes into that. So it is a fundamental aspect of an organization's defense as well against cyber attacks. Well-trained employees are often the first line of defense, and they have to be. Yeah. If they are well-trained, they'll be more capable of recognizing and reporting suspicious activities before they escalate. Yeah. So they know what to do if they realize something's off or they hear, oh, Jimmy's laptop got malware. They know what to do then. Right. They're not just, oh, okay, well, I'll just keep going about my business and not worry about anything. Keep
Glad it wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Just going on. Yeah. Sending Jimmy still files, his computer's compromised and you're sending him sensitive information. You got to know the employees have to be well trained on what to do if something like that occurred. Right. Touching on what it should cover, key areas like, phishing detection, of course, big one, secure password practices. That should be involved in the policies, the procedures, the technical aspect, but you should also be training the employees on that. Okay. And then the proper use of communication tools to kind of prevent the accidental dissemination of any sensitive information. Pretty accurate to what I just mentioned. Jimmy's sending someone else information that their laptop was just attacked. Yep. Well, the laptop, the attacker's just hanging around on there, moving around laterally in that workstation. Well, guess what? You're sending him sensitive information. Now we're in big trouble.
And he can send an email back, and if it's got some malware in it, maybe you click on it, don't realize because you think you're talking to that individual. So many different ways.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to know what to do when. Additionally, I'll add, employees should be educated on specific procedures to follow in the event of an attack. So they should have not only don't send to this person, send to this, there's just slew of things that they should know and follow in the event of an attack. So this just ensures that they can respond promptly and effectively.
Absolutely.
But that's what we want. We want to minimize the big goal, minimize the overall impact. That is all we want. Keep business moving, minimize the impact, because attacks occur. It's almost impossible to just entirely prevent them. So they will occur. You want to know what to do when.
Right.
Employee training is not only just a good first line of defense for your organization, it's essential in stopping the flow of an attacker to prevent any further impact. So it's on both ends of that spectrum of the IRP.
Absolutely. And I know there's really some good places you can get training for your employees. I know we personally use KnowBe4, and we get monthly training that we do. There's different phishing attacks, things like that are set up that are not real phishing attacks, but simulated. Yeah. And if you fail that, you may have to go to remedial training, which some of us have had to do. And honestly, I'm kind of glad that I've had to do it, because it does like, oh, okay, I wasn't paying attention in there as much as I should have been.
Yeah.
Once you get like, oh, no, shouldn't have clicked that, it's like, ooh, okay. Guess I should pay a little more attention. So it's not something bad like, oh, you're going to get fired or you put on probation or something. It's just to help you understand we're all busy. We've all got our day going on, and that you kind of still have to have that in the back of your head. Okay, is this something that's trying to get me? It looks a little squirrely. Oh, this looks like it's sent from somebody else. That's a different email. That's not the email I know for that person, something like that.
That training it keeps you on your toes 100%, keeps you active. And it like you said, it gives you the feedback. The gamification of training now is huge. That I really think that is a big part and will help organizations, like you mentioned, KnowBe4, things like that. Just stay active.
Yeah. It keeps you fresh. And then also, if you do it with the intent of, we're not trying to catch you, we're trying to help the whole organization. And if you look at it that way, that's important. I'm not at risk if I make a mistake that I'm going to get fired or something, or disciplinary action or whatever. We're just trying to make sure, hey, here's a new vector that they like to approach.
Yeah.
Test you on it. Okay. You kind of understand. Oh, maybe you need a little bit of help. Okay, cool. Great.
Yep. Exactly.
Definitely a good thing. So let's say we've gone through a cyber attack. We've been able to mitigate things. Damage was minimal, a little bit of downtime, nothing else. How can an organization evaluate its current security posture and implement improvements after an attack?
It's definitely essential, just like everything I've talked about, for an organization to critically evaluate its current security posture. Like, what is it right now, to identify the weaknesses and the areas of improvement. So the evaluation should kind of begin with a comprehensive review of the attack. Mm-hmm. So what happened? Who was involved? How did they get in? What did it compromise? Things like this. Mm-hmm. With a comprehensive review of the attack, including how it occurred on every level.
Okay.
It's not just the base level, what you see. Mm-hmm. It's more than that. It's always more in depth. There's more information to find out about the attack.
Okay.
Then you want to know how it was mitigated, and then the effectiveness of the response. So yeah, we know what happened, how they got in, what port, mm-hmm. what network, what laptop. We want to know how it was mitigated. So who stopped it, who patched, who closed the port, mm-hmm. what happened there, who did it, and how. And then the effectiveness of the response. So did we take 2 days and now our business operations were off for 2 days?
Right.
Or did we take 2 hours?
Right.
It's a big and drastic effective response time. Mm-hmm. My biggest thing is how long was our business down? What was the overall financial impact? Things like that. Mm-hmm. So the organization, once that's done, should then reassess its security policies. The policies, the technology, everything, the practices.
Right.
To ensure that they're kind of robust enough to prevent future attacks. Or at the bare minimum, reduce the likelihood of an attack occurring again.
Yeah, there's no time like the present after an attack to review something, right? See what's good or bad. How was your IRP? Maybe make some changes and adjustments. You had it in place. It was pretty functional, but man, if we just would have had this in place, it may have taken less time. Maybe we'll stop it earlier, etc.
Exactly it. Implementing those little improvements. It doesn't even have to be, we missed a whole thing. We didn't log anything. Yeah. No, maybe one person in IT didn't properly turn off the permissions and they added an hour, added 2, mm-hmm. whatever it is.
Right.
So implementing improvements might involve updating security software, enhancing employee training programs, mm-hmm. revising incident response plans, which is a big one, based on lessons learned.
Yep.
All of those things you can just improve just a little bit. Another big aspect for all the sectors is continuous monitoring and regular audits. This is very crucial to kind of maintain strong security posture over time. I mean, you want to know what's going on when at all times. And you might be audited. Depending on your sector, you might be audited.
Right.
You might have to comply with these things. So you want to know, you want to log. Security, it's not just a set it and forget it. It's constantly evolving, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Not only the threats, but the solutions too.
Yeah.
New threats happen. You have to have a new solution.
Right.
So you always want to monitor and be actively engaged in the organization's security efforts.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and something that you mentioned, you were talking about logs and things like that. You have to make sure you have the right equipment within your network to be able to monitor some of that stuff. If you're like, what are you talking about logs? How would I even know what a log is? Where would I find them? Maybe you don't have the device that you need. There's certain SIEM or SIMs, things like that, help you track, and maybe your MSP that's doing it, to get that information so you can see where things happen.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great talk today. Do you have anything else you'd like to share, about cybersecurity attacks and how to be prepared or even respond?
But yeah, I would just say the last thing on this is start with an assessment. Even if you're not creating an IRP, you want to just up your security status on your organization. Start with the assessment, work from there.
Yep.
You'll not get the whole IRP set up in 2 days. It takes time, resources, everything to build the proper process, but start with something.
And we can help you here if you're interested at Core. We have different tools and things that we can do. We can help you with assessments, especially if you're in the DoD sector. CMMC is coming up, which is a big deal if you're in the DoD section. We have some tools and some resources for that as well. So if you're interested and you need some help, give us a call. If we can't help you, we might be able to steer you in the right direction, with training or something like that. So don't hesitate to reach out. Really appreciate you being here today, Reagan, and all of your really, really key information for dealing with cyber attacks.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me. It was fun to talk.
Always. Great to hear you. And we want to thank everyone here who's listened to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative for you. If you're looking for more information about Core Business Solutions, how we can help you with ISO certification or cybersecurity, we also do customized training and other things, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. Or you can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, be sure to do so, and that way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's released next week. Have a great day, everyone.